you could study from nothing more than 10 exams alone ever. And there's 86 numbered ones now. Using only the 10 most recent ones, that could be enough. I'd recommend doing more, of course. I'd recommend doing maybe 20 or 30 ideally, and having 10 of those be strictly timed full-length 5-section exams, using the other 10 or 20 for building your foundation first. And so again, back to the foundation, the accuracy, first phase of LSAT studying, what do? You want to work untimed, doing the questions by type. I recommend typically starting with games because it's the hardest seeming at first, but it's actually the lowest hanging fruit. So you start with games, but not just games in general. You start with the easiest LSAT logic games type, which I consider to be ordering or sequencing, depending on your terminology, doing the ordering games first, and starting with the easiest ordering games, then the moderate ordering games, then the difficult ordering games, then moving on to the easiest grouping games, moderate grouping games, difficult grouping games, and then on to the harder ones from there, like the combination games and curveballs and weird ones and rare ones and pattern ones and all of those extras that come later. But start with the easiest, work through to the more difficult, working by type. Then do the same for logical reasoning. There's a dozen logical reasoning question types or more. Do those by type. I have categorizations for those on my site. There are other categorizations online as well, but work by question type just so you get a sense of the proper perspective from which to view the stimulus. And then for reading comp, the topics don't matter quite as much because there's only 4 major categories of reading comprehension passages, but get a sense, of course, for what your weak areas are and maybe do some additional outside reading just to gain some familiarity with the kinds of topics that tend to come up. People often ask about for reading comp going to outside material like The Economist or Scientific American. And I'd say if that's like great for your commute, like or you want to do some casual side reading, that's fine. But ultimately, best to stick with the actual LSAT passages because there's hundreds of them. Now, I talked about the untimed accuracy foundational portion. You do that first, then you move on to individual timed sections to work on pacing. And so that is especially important for logical reasoning where there's a clear general order of difficulty, kind of figuring out how to avoid getting bogged down on certain question types or certain tough questions, then hopefully coming back to them later. But it's very important for the games and reading comp also, since there is an average of 8 minutes and 45 seconds per game and per passage, but not all of them are of equal difficulty. And so kind of getting used to going faster on some, slower on others, I think is enormously valuable. And of course, the LSAT does have a strict time component. It's worth getting used to that. Now, if you have ADHD or some other reason that you might want special testing accommodations, I would recommend seeking that out and seeking it out as soon as possible because LSAC is a bureaucracy. They move slowly. It takes time before they make a decision on you and you want to be all squared away for June or July or whenever you're taking it. And so go to the doctor, get that note, have that documentation. If you had extra time for the SAT or ACT or you had extra time in college, that will certainly help your case. If not, it may be a bit tougher to get, but it's worth it. You know, there's no notation on your file that you had extra time, and getting time and a half or double time is huge. You know, going from 35 minutes to 70 minutes or 35 to 53 for a single section, the benefit for you on that is enormous. And so I definitely recommend seeking it out if it might apply to your situation. If not, of course, make the best of it, but do make sure to do a lot of timed work and don't wait to the last minute to do the timed work. Then the final phase will be endurance, doing full-length 5-section exams. This is really, really important to do 5 sections, not 4. The published prep tests are only 4 because they, of course, do not give you the experimental section. They save that for later for use in a future LSAT administration. And so let's say you're doing exams 83, 84, 85, and 86 in timed settings over the course of a 4-week period. You might take exam 82 and cut it into 4 parts and splice in each one of those 4 parts into 83, 84, 85, and 86. And then later tabulate your results for what 82 might have been had you taken it as a separate timed exam.